Hello, and welcome back to 100 Days of Clarity. Today is day number 8. Day number 7. And while we finish primitive data types the last couple days, today we're going to learn about two of the most universal operators that, again, in addition to concat, in addition to simple math operators, are two functions that are seen in every programming language. And that has to do with and or. Both the and the or operators are extremely useful for evaluating any piece of logic, and specifically and for evaluating that every single parameter passed in evaluates to true, and or is very useful when you just want to make sure that one use case evaluates to true. As usual, we like to code about it, not talk about it. So let's go ahead, open up your IDE, open up Clarity Basics 1 for I think the last time, because we're going to move on to another file moving forward. And make sure you open up your terminal and you're in the right directory. Cool. So that being said, I'm going to go ahead, press enter again, and comment in day 7 and /or. And first, we're going to go ahead, keep it very, very simple. Write a define read-only function that we're just going to call true-1, so true1. We're going to call it and1. And we're going to press enter, indent, and then parentheses, and as you can see the preview popping up there, we're just going to pass in 2 parameters. And again, you could pass in as many parameters as you want. Probably not as many as you want, but double digit, etc. should work. So we're going to write true. And we're also going to write a scenario in which we expect this and statement to fail. And so copy paste that function, except change the and1 to and2. And change just the second true statement to false. And as usual, make sure you're in the right directory when it comes to your terminal. And if you are, type in clarinet contract to spin this up. Clarinet console. And again, I also want to make one point here. I don't edit out any mistakes that I'm doing because I want to get very clear that making mistakes continuously is part of this process. It's going to be discouraging at first to run into mistakes, but you're going to become a senior when you realize that it's knowing which mistakes and how to deal with them make you a senior programmer, not having mistakes. So with that being said, contract call, we're going to go ahead and call and1, which indeed returns a value of true, and and2, which indeed returns a value of false. Not that exciting. So let's go ahead and make these examples a little bit more interesting. Let's go ahead and copy paste and1. Change the name to and3. And what we're going to do is let's replace the first true statement with parentheses, a greater than symbol, which we didn't cover in the math operators, but greater than, equal than, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to, are 4 functions that are also built into Clarity. And so here we want to make sure that all of this evaluates to true. So let's say u2 greater than u1. And again, this greater than function works the same way as any Clarity function. Open parentheses, the name of the function, input 1, input 2. And for the second true, let's go ahead and replace true with parentheses not false. And again, if we wanted to make the syntax even easier to read, or let's say we added another input here that we wanted to check value to true, just call it true. And again, we see that line 75 is now getting a little bit long. if I were developing, or if I were building this contract, this would be a scenario where I would start opening the parentheses and then just indent, so I know everything that we're evaluating in this statement and that it's all part of one big AND statement. Cool. So let's go ahead, go back to terminal and run this guy. Clarinet console. And 3. And we evaluate to true. So everything worked as intended. And as you can see many reasons why the AND statement would be useful. And of course, the opposite or the inverse of the AND statement is the OR statement, in which AND requires that every single input evaluates to true, or requires that only a single input evaluates to true. So let's go ahead and write a define read only and call it OR1. And in the body, enter indent and open parentheses or, and let's just say true, false. And again, let's write a scenario in which we know it should fail and call it OR2. And here, instead of having true, false, let's just have false, false. Or let's have some fun with it. Let's just have parentheses not true. And we got an error. Okay, got an error because I didn't change this function name. Whoops. Okay, and now we should be good. And if we run the contract, we see that we are. And let's go ahead and try calling both these new functions. So OR1, which we expect to evaluate to true, does indeed evaluate to true. And then OR2, which should evaluate to false, indeed does. So that's, in a nutshell, what the OR and the AND statements are, and how they work in Clarity. And again, how they work in Clarity is the same way they work in any other programming language. So if you understand it here, you'll be good to hold that logic, when you learn something else. And I guess just to wrap this up for today, let's go ahead and write one more OR function, but that has maybe 3 or 4 different inputs. And we'll have some fun with it, and we'll go ahead and call it a day. And so remember, when we do an OR statement, only one of them has to validate to true. So just make sure you do that. I'm going to go ahead and write in a couple of the statements that we had above in and 3. And so here I'm actually going to flip one of the signs so that we know this is going to evaluate to false. We know not true will evaluate to false. And instead of true here, which again would make this work, let's think of another way of writing true that's more interesting. We're going to go ahead, We're going to go ahead and use and within this OR. And for this last true, we're going to replace it with and then this inequality that we had here, and then just true. Awesome. And so if you're following this line of logic, which again, the only thing I want to exemplify here is already with just these 7 days of knowledge, you can start building out some pretty complex logic. And so here, as we can go one line at a time, we see, hey, this is a function called OR3. It reads values only. We see the main body is one function wrapped in, we see the main body is one main OR function. And we can tell that there are 3 different inputs being provided. We know that the first one should turn out to be false. Yep. We know that the second one should also turn out to be false. And we know that the third one and should turn out to be true, since both of those statements are true. And so this entire operation should return true. We're going to go ahead, run it, or 3, and indeed it does evaluate to true. Cool. Hopefully, again, that last function, you're starting to see that even with just these 7 days, this knowledge is compounding. So don't lose track. Remember, when you're learning something new, momentum is the name of the game. Keep building, keep shipping, keep coding, keep coming back, and I will see you on day 8.